What's going on, my homies? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am back with the next episode of our Let's Go Pokemon Draft League analysis, where we'll be talking about Snorlax in this episode, but I am not alone, just like in our previous videos of this series. Joining me is a pretty cool guy, Leo, 6ftHax. Go ahead and say hello.
Hey, yo. How's it going, everybody out there? So, quick apologies that this will most likely be going up on Tuesday as opposed to Monday. We will be back on regular schedule next Monday. Just had a lot of things going on yesterday, so me and Joe were not able to record. If y'all may have missed episode 2, which was on my channel, which goes up on Thursdays, by the way, then you guys can go check that out and come back to this. And also let us know what other models you guys would like to see for this series here. And Joe, let them know what our awesome Pokemon is, even though they can see and read.
They can already see it. It's going to be Snorlax in this episode. I think someone in the comments of the first video left a request for us to go over Snorlax, so here we are. So Snorlax is a pretty interesting mon. It's definitely going to be a little bit less versatile than the other Pokemon that we have gone over so far in this series.
Yeah, it really
but
got
it still
crippled.
has... Right, it got crippled a lot for sure here, losing 2 of its best moves, one being Curse. Curse is, I don't think, a move at all in the game, and Rest is typically banned in most Let's Go leagues, so we're not really considering that an option, but, you know, on the off chance that it is an option in the league that you are playing in or watching, then Rest obviously is still really good for Snorlax. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the stats here. So Snorlax still has base 160 HP, making it a very solid tank for your draft. Also has 110 attack, 65 special attack, 65 defense, 110 special defense, and 30 speed. So this is, of course, the same stat distribution we've seen from Snorlax since, I believe, the very beginning. And yeah, so really solid attack stat, really solid HP stat. Like I said, makes for a really good tank for your draft. It's able to serve as a nice specially defensive switch in, as well as there are a lot of strong special attackers in this game, and Snorlax is certainly one of, if not the best way to switch into the majority of those special attackers, at least in also being like an offensive threat in the process. You can switch in something like Chansey, I guess, if you want to switch into a special attacker like really easily, but let's be real, Chansey doesn't do any damage in return, so Snorlax obviously is a lot better for that. And really its defense stat is pretty respectable in combination with its HP. If you were to run just like an impish nature on your Snorlax, you'd be able to take a variety of physical hits in addition to those special hits if you wanted to. So there's a lot of things you can really do with Snorlax just from a base stat standpoint. But with that said, Leo, let's talk a little bit about the move pool.
So talking about Snorlax and its move pool here, a big thing about Snorlax and Let's Go is that unfortunately its move pool is nowhere near as good as it was in 7th gen. As Joel mentioned, it lost access to probably one of the best moves Snorlax had in Curse, which is really bad because that means there is no actual way Snorlax can set up in Let's Go, but it does still have some decent offensive coverage moves. It still gets access to all of the elemental punches, which is pretty good. It gets Earthquake and Rock Slide as well for that nice edge quake coverage. It gets Crunch for ghost types and psychic types, which Snorlax typically does deal with accordingly because of its massive special defensive stat. It even gets access to Yawn still, which is kind of nice because that kind of lets Snorlax be a bit of a deter to setup Pokemon, because you can Yawn as they setup and then they're either forced to stay in and go to sleep, or they have to switch out, which is always really good. And even though it does not get access to things like Double Edge or Return, it still has access to Body Slam, which, even though it's not that hard, even though it doesn't hit that hard, it is still able to get the paralysis, which is always nice. And that even Facade is a nice option to run on Snorlax because of the fact that a main way of being able to deal with Snorlax is to burn it or toxic it, and then at that point you're getting Facade boosted with the stab as well in there. So Snorlax, even though again move pool not that great, still has some very good options to still try and hit things as hard as it can with that nice base 110 physical attack stat. So I will let Jolt here talk about exactly what Snorlax can bring to your draft.
Yeah, so there's a few key roles that Snorlax can fill for your draft. I've already kind of alluded to one of them just being that really good specially defensive tank that you can switch into a variety of special attackers and then retaliate with a relatively high base attack stat as well. But I think it also has a couple interesting niches as a defensive Pokemon, being able to really switch into psychic types, which is something that you really don't see too much of in Let's Go. There's a really small supply of available dark types, which are really the notorious way in history to switch into psychic types. I believe, I'm trying to think off the top of my head what the dark types are. I know there's a Alolan Raticate. Can you think of any others off the top of your head, Leo?
Alolan Persian.
Alolan Persian, but that really doesn't do any damage.
And then Alolan Muck and
Alolan Muck.
Gyarados,
so right, Alolan Muck and Mega Gyarados are really the two that are actually good. Alolan Persian's not going to really apply any offensive pressure. Alolan Raticate loses Hustle, so it loses a lot of its offensive presence as well. So what Snorlax is able to do is it's able to really kind of serve that role as a pseudo psychic resist, as well as a ghost immunity, as something like Gengar or Mega Gengar, if it happens to be allowed in the league that you're watching or playing in. Those are both really threatening offensive Pokemon as well, and Snorlax would be able to effectively counter Pokemon like that as well, having access to Crunch, Earthquake, and etc. So just a really good switch into special attackers as you would expect. But again, like I mentioned earlier, if you do give it more of an impish or relaxed nature and boost that defense stat, then it's also able to absorb hits from a lot of the maybe weaker attacking physical attackers as well, and there are a lot of them in the Let's Go meta. I still wouldn't recommend letting this thing take a fighting attack from stuff like Poliwrath or Machamp. Those both hit really hard and Snorlax would not appreciate that, but otherwise this thing probably can take any one hit from most Pokemon in the game and again retaliate with a strong physical attack of its own. So overall it can fill a lot of roles for your team, and definitely a mon that's worth drafting in my opinion. But with that said, Leo, let's talk a little bit about the checks and counters.
So Snorlax kind of sits in a very special position here. It does hit decently hard, but there's not really anything that it can right out destroy, if you guys get what I'm saying. Like, it can't really OHKO many things. It can kind of 2-hit KO some things, but for the most part Snorlax will just about be 3-hit KOing everything, which doesn't seem that bad either. But then you factor in its very, very low speed and the fact that pretty much any physically offensive fighting type just kind of smacks this thing. It's kind of an interesting spot because of those factors. So most defensive mons are able to deal with this. Some of the best answers to Snorlax on the defensive side are things like Venusaur, Mega Venusaur, and Zapdos. They all have nice forms of recovery, Zapdos having Roost, and then Venusaur is able to Leech Seed Snorlax, potentially Toxicate and Protect. And because of Snorlax's massive HP stat and how bulky Venusaur and Mega Venusaur are respectively, then they're not really going to be able to be broken down by Snorlax and should be able to beat it very easily. And then once again, the counters are very straightforward. It's just typically any type of offensive fighting Typemon, like the Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, and Primeape. So yeah, just kind of things like that. So very easy to deal with, but still can hit very, very hard and take special hits for days.
I'll throw Aerodactyl and Mega Arrow in there as well as pretty solid switch-ins to Snorlax that can immediately, respond with either a status or a strong offensive move of their own. There's just a lot of options, really.
Yeah, so it does have ways of being stopped. So that's why you want to draft pretty smartly around and get some nice physical bulk on the defensive side for it.
Okay, so with that said, I guess we could talk a little bit about where we think it's going to be drafted. Leo, I'll let you go ahead and start with this one. What do you think?
So personally, I don't think by any means Snorlax is a round one pick. I really, especially depending on what exactly is allowed in the league. Even if the regular bans are there, like Alakazam, and no Megazam, and no Megagar, no Mew, no Melmetal, none of those. Even if those are not there, I still don't really think Snorlax should go round one, but I do definitely think that it makes a solid round two pick, whether it be very early round two or near the end of round two. Actually, if you get this heading into round three, at that point I think it's just kind of a steal. But by no means do I think this goes round one. Typically I think definitely round two, early round two for sure, is where I would put this.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I'd say it's definitely more of a round two pick. In terms of being just a normal type, being a ghost immunity, I think it's probably the best Pokemon at doing that that's available. I'm trying to think of other normal types off the top of my head. The one that's jumping out to me is stuff like Chansey and Wigglytuff, and neither of those are even close to going in round 2.
Yeah, and then Wigglytuff doesn't even have any type of recovery.
Right, exactly, and I don't know, most of the normal types don't have any type of recovery, actually, which is kind of unfortunate, but even so, I think it definitely deserves to be a round 2 pick, especially considering, and Leo and I were kind of talking about this a little bit before the video, there's a pretty significant drop-off, I think, in terms of like the quality and the strength of mons between the round 1 picks and the round 2 picks. You know, obviously Snorlax isn't the most versatile Pokemon that you're going to find on the draft board for Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but it's still really good at the roles that it can fill, and I think that's why it deserves to be, you know, in the upper echelon of mons at the very least of those you can draft in the format. And really, if you just look at its raw base stats as well, I think those are just significantly better than the vast majority of Pokemon that are going to be available to you, and that's just excluding the moveset options that it has. So overall, definitely a pretty solid Pokemon, and one I would recommend giving a shot in your Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee leagues.
Yeah, Snorlax is pretty cool, honestly. Snorlax is like one of my all-time favorite Gen 1 mons. And it did kind of fall off in Let's Go, but it's still definitely a fun mon nonetheless that you guys should definitely try it if you want to give it a swing there. So, of course, if y'all did enjoy this, hit that thumbs up button down below. Check me out in the description. Make sure to let us know in the comment section what mon you would like us to analyze. Analyses?
Yes. Analyze. We're going to go with it. Analyze.
Analyze.
Yes. Let us know what you want us to analyze.
Thursday's episode. On Thursday's episode, which is on my channel. Any parting words, Mr.
I'm stuck on Analyze. I'm done here. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and again, hope we see you in our next episode coming out on Thursday over on the SixftHax channel. Make sure to check him out, and we will see you all in the next one. Peace.
Later.